no way the county could ever open and close and operate a landfill with a population base. I'm totally opposed to any and all these write-offs, period. I've always have been. I've voted against every single one of them except the one, which I will hear again. But I don't think the county's ordinance can circumvent our landfill, period. I think we're operating that thing. We have a $3.5 million liability the minute that thing closes. And that's not the county's liability. That's the city of Ely residents will be stuck for that. $3.5 million, isn't it 3.4 million or something right now to close? Pretty close, pretty close. So as far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't write up any of this.
So your suggestion, Jim, is that the $10.60 a month should stay on there and that's what should be paid, but anything above that should have been written off.
Yeah, correct. You know, the way it is, the paper there we have, the thing there,
Sure.
they went through there and they done their homework. They added up $1,228, and she went back into history and she has it all over there. We just need to go back to what they did. You know, when Rogers did his, but this is how you do it, guys. And they go through there and put that, but that $1,228 needs to stay on Mariah Enterprise on that building, and don't divide it by 3 because if there's 3 other properties and spread it evenly among them. This gentleman is living in McGill, has 3 homes. He's living there, so he must be paying his water bill there. I don't know what a residential landfill rate is, but this is a whole bunch of smoke. I just believe mistakes are made. I make them all the time. It's a mistake, I believe, it needs to be corrected. And anytime we have the word livable structure, because let me tell you, you can ask this fire chief, there are people living in buildings that we might not call livable, but they're living in them.
Is there a legal definition of livable structure in any of the ordinances of the city or county? No. Or something that the assessor goes by?
And no, it isn't the assessor. What the assessor's office clarified is they rely on the building official's designations for occupancy. Whether or not an occupancy certificate would be issued for that structure.
Right.
But we can't do anything about the $1,200 tonight, right? We have to decide on this $2,400 because the $1,200 is not on the agenda.
But that's right. Did he pay that? I guess it come down. Did he make? He didn't make the payment. He just took that and allocated it again, or what did he do?
Well, no, that was money previously paid by Mr. Pratt on the Mariah Enterprises 35 Avenue R account. So, I mean, to me, depending on city council action tonight, I don't think it's out of harmony with the item to put it back on that account if the council wants that left open. I would change the final word on that.
What are the options on the table tonight with this agenda item? Is it just approval or denial and then it's got to be reworded and put on? Or can the council decide to amend that some? Because I think we've done that in the past.
So you can approve or not the past due utility, the past due amount of $2,400. This $1,200 is not part of the past due amount. That was money that was actually paid that maybe shouldn't have been because there's not a livable structure. And so this was actually paid and proven to be paid. And so we could go back and tack on $10 to that or something to that effect. But that was money that was actually paid in landfill fees for this 35 Avenue R has a livable structure, but it has not been assessed as a livable structure. So there was a billing error over years that you paid that $1,200 for. Separate from that is the $2,500, which is the penalties associated with prior to paying those. So there's also penalties because amounts weren't paid. And then in reviewing, the recommendation was to waive those penalties because it's a non-livable structure. That there's no occupant in it and it's not a residence. And that recommendation is based on the county ordinance only allowing billing for residences and residences and businesses. If we want to change that, we can do that through ordinance, we can do that through MOUs, some kind of agreement with the county. But my job is to tell you what the law says and what I found in the ordinances, also trying to piece together prior attorneys' decisions. And so that is, from what I found and what I've read, the recommendation.
I object highly on that. This has to be deemed a closed business. That's what it is. It's not. You can go in there and live. It's a livable structure if you choose to live in it. The misnomer
But that's
twelve-
not the agenda item.
I know, but the $1,228, if we don't sell on that now, we're not gonna charge them $10.60 ever again.
So what we have on the table tonight, and I think there's some points brought up that we definitely need to look at, but within the scope of this agenda item is either approval or denial of this request.
Okay, read the agenda item, due to the property never having a livable structure. That voids everything, in my opinion. It's a shock. That sentence, that last, due to property never having a livable structure, is just false. So I think this is mute.
So you don't even think it should be voted on?
No,
Okay.
because it's worded wrong.
And that we rely on the assessor to receive.
And the assessor said they did not, I don't know who you guys talked to, the assessor. We got a letter right here from Mr. Burton, and he did not say that. I just read it to you.
That's what I thought it did.
Well, on the assessor's website, it says it's not a livable structure.
So when you guys say you're relying on the assessor's determination, you go on their website and it says livable structure, no livable structure?
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and it's, once again, it's up to the council on this. You guys could make no motion, a motion to remove the item. Is that a motion someone can make?
They can
Throw the
vote,
motion in?
you can vote to approve it or vote to deny it.
Okay.
You can vote to
You can
deny
make a
it.
negative
You
motion,
can
though.
make a motion.
Well, just not act on it. You don't have to approve it.
Aye.
Can you explain one thing? You said that they actually paid it, but it says on this paper I have, balance write-off for actually it's $1,228.99. That's a write-off. It doesn't say they paid it. That says that we wrote it off.
He took that money and put it on his 3 houses.
This is money he paid.
Yeah,
That-
he
that
had
is really-
paid that, Councilman Spear. We have record that he paid that.
That's money he paid. Based on the determination from the assessors, the attorney in the clerk's office wrote everything off. The
That's
two,
clear as mud.
They took,
Okay.
they took the $1,228 off this account
I
and put it
understand.
on the 3 houses.
Sure, I
With the
understand.
interest and all going with it? No.
No, the penalties is gonna be rolled off.
Yeah.
So, if there's no further questions or discussions on the tenor of this item, I will entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the removal of the past due penalty fees based on the attorney's assessment.
I'll entertain a second. Hearing none, motion dies for lack of a second. We will move on to item 3. Board members, city clerk, lead discussion for possible action, approval to remove past due utility fee penalties up to the amount of $584.37 from 236 Bay Avenue, number 2, Ely, Nevada, at the request of the property owners Caleb and Brandy Seminole. This item, I believe, was also approved by, or recommended for approval by the utility board this morning.
Just out of curiosity, can somebody give me the history on this? Did anybody go look at it besides this cat?
Which one?
It's the Fay Avenue project property. Anybody go look at it?
My understanding is it's a stucco shell.
It's a blank, empty lot.
Okay.
It's where Milo Pierce used to live. We had all this problem with him. I drove in, there's a slab of concrete there, an empty lot with a bunch of trash in it. There's a little shed behind that next house right next to it. It's junk. They've been paying landfill on the junk lot. There's nothing there as far as I can see. You write down the numbers.
The city tore down the building. That's why it's an empty lot.
We need to start doing our homework on this, folks.
Get a clerk.
I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make that motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second from Councilwoman Beecher. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye. Nay.
Motion passes 3-1. Move on to item 8, items for discussion and possible action of the Ely City Council as recommended by the Animal Control Advisory Board. Item 1, Board Member City Animal Control Officer Hayes, discussion for possible action, approval for the City of Ely Animal Control Facility to participate in Maddie's Pet Adoption Days, a two-day adoption event for Nevada-based animal groups, June 11th through 12th, 2021. All adoption fees must be waived, and $200 will be given to the City of Ely Animal Control for every adoption of a dog or cat to offset adoption costs and other animal control needs.
I move to approve.
Motion to approve from Councilman Spear, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Beecher. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item 2, board members, Public Works Supervisor Craycraft, discussion for possible action, approval to budget $2,500 in fiscal year 2022 for animal license Cassell software. I'll entertain a motion on this.
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item 9, items for discussion and possible action only at the Ely City Council. The consent agenda, we've got minutes from April 8th and bills from April 19th, April 26th, April 29th, and May 7th.
I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion to approve the minutes and the bills.
I'm not bill in there. I can't find it. I don't think it has.
We need to have a second before we have
I'll
discussion.
second.
Any discussion? Go ahead,
I think
Councilman.
you said it, Billy, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on the bill to the agenda or minutes? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda approved. Item B, new business. 1, Mayor Robertson, discussion for possible action, review with possible amendment and acceptance of proposed revision to interlocal agreement for fire EMS services between the City of Ely and White Pine County. I believe you have a draft there, and I think a lot of great work has gone into that. Appreciate the work of the rest of the negotiating committee. But so this can be entertained by the, go ahead.
I'm not on that negotiating team. What, both sides of this negotiation, who makes up the parties in the negotiating team? The city team, who's the county team?
Can I say right now before you proceed that because of county personnel changes, I now have a relationship in a personal capacity to a member of the county negotiating team, so I will be abstaining.
So the city team, as the council approved, was our fire chief, our city attorney, our city treasurer, and myself. And on the county side is Lori Carson, Commissioner Carson, the district attorney, their fire chief, and their finance officer.
Okay, the district attorney, they started with Weeble, now they have James. Okay. How many times has our attorney been present at those meetings?
Except for one, he's been there either telephonically or in person for all of them.
Okay, thank you.
So we do have the draft here for approval, as I was saying. This is the recommendation of the city's negotiating team. The county's plans to put this on their last agenda for May. But so they can consider that proposal, the council needs to either adopt or amend or whatever they need to do. So this is an official proposal from the city. So if there's any questions or explanations.
What I think needs to be done so the public knows that listening in, that bottom part of that, I don't have one sitting there. Anyway. You know, the proposal, I think this needs to be read so the public can hear it. Sure, would like to read that, Mr. Mayor? But that's not that long.
As soon as I grab it on, I'll do that. Thank you. Proposal for county fire EMS contract fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2023. The proposal to White Pine County for fire EMS contract is as follows. First bullet point, White Pine County's total yearly payment of $200,000 to be paid in equal payments of $50,000 quarterly. I believe currently they're at $150,000. The fire EMS revenues in excess of the estimated revenue of $450,000 for fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023. A rebate of 3% is being offered as shown on the attached worksheet with corresponding ranges for said rebate. So if the revenue comes in higher than anticipated, that's a savings to both parties in the agreement. The rebate will be subtracted from the final $50,000 payment of the fourth quarter of each fiscal year. The city's proposal is for fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023 to be renegotiated if necessary for fiscal year 2024. The original amount that was requested on the city's behalf was to increase the annual payment from $150,000 to $350,000 due to the uncertainty of the effect COVID may have had on our overall revenues. The first counteroffer suggested back by the county was for an additional $50,000, and then as time went on, the county came back with a revised reduced amount of $30,000. Both times the city negotiating team rejected these amounts. The city team's current proposal is for an additional $50,000 for a total amount of $200,000 annual payment, with the possibility of a rebate based off the total amount of fire EMS revenues collected in a fiscal year. If fire EMS revenues collected in a fiscal year exceed the $450,000. And that number, the 450, was what the original agreement was based on, as we understand that from, and keeping in mind, the negotiating team was there when this happened, but working backwards from our notes and going through the agreement, like we said, I think the city has made some incredible efforts to be better about collecting the money that's due them for the calls. We've changed billing companies, which brought in more revenue. And they've been very diligent, city staff and the fire department as well, and making sure that paperwork's done and billed correctly to make sure we're getting what's coming to us. So all of the money that comes in, if there's additional funds, we both realize a savings there, but it's hard to budget based on how many accidents are going to happen or not. But keeping that staffing and the training up is what was important to make sure we can continue serving those outlying areas in the county and support the county volunteer staff as well that's been doing such a great job. So on the back there, we do have this all lined out here, and certainly hats off to Councilman Allworth for his work on that. I thought it was a great idea.
Okay, so on that sample, the county, basically, the last request, we wanted 150, they went to 30, so 180,000. So this spreadsheet on the back, the 3% rebate, if we go over 450,000, you got it broke down. That 3% gets them, instead of having to pay 200,000, 186, 185. So it's within a couple $1,000s of the 180. So basically, is if we collect more revenue, like you just said, Mr. Mayor, they're going to get a kickback too. You know, so that's the idea, that we're trying to appease them with the 180, and we can if we get to the 450,000. Again, nobody wants to bank on accidents to make money, but that's the deal. So that's how the spreadsheet came out. So we just wait until 2 weeks to see what the county's going to offer, I guess.
And a couple things to keep in mind too, that original agreement really, the numbers were plugged in based on hiring EMTs only for 12-hour shifts and not running them 24 hours a day. The city was uncomfortable with that, and they tried to fill them with a fire EMS position for 24 hours, so we had 2 people working at all times, and it's working good. These guys are busy. I think Pat had all the ambulances out within a matter of minutes just a couple days ago, and they're really stepping up to the plate. So.
Well, and logistically, it's been said time and time again in these negotiating meetings that logistically the agreement has been working very well. People are getting served, response times have gone down for the outlying areas. Like you, I'm amazed at how often all of our ambulances are out, and our agreement and our equipment out servicing these areas as well as servicing the city. And it's working really well in that respect. We just want to make sure that we're both holding hands equally on the financial aspect of it as well. Any other questions on this?
Yeah, I have a question for that.
Yeah.
You're a little concerned about, or confused, I guess, not concerned. And what if, let's say it goes well over that, at what point do we stop paying that? What's the minimum they're going to have to pay for the year? I mean, sure, if we have more accidents or fires or whatever.
We don't pay them, they pay us.
We'll be paying them back if we don't take the last payment.
So flip it over. If it goes to this range here, 3%, that minus 200,000, if they had a savings of that much.
Okay, so what is, okay, now we're supplying a complete emergency team, all equipment and all. At what point do we stop giving them a percentage over the buck? What's the minimum we're going to pay for us having that by standby? Is it 150,000 or is it 185? 180.
You're concerned if we bring it well over this spreadsheet.
Okay.
Let's assume we get $800,000 in.
first 3 payments are 50 grand. That's 100 and a half. The last payment we take,
Yeah.
whatever rebate you want to call it, however you want to call it. If the rebate comes 75,000, we send it back 75,000, so we've actually given.
It'll never be that. 185 minus 200,000. That's all they can go. They can't.
I don't see that number. It says that.
No, 200,000. So let's say you go to the highest rate. What's that number?
185.
That's all they're gonna pay.
That's the minimum that pays on.
Okay, that's the minimum. That's good.
Okay, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve from Councilman Carson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilman Allred. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 3 voting aye, 1 abstention,
Did we
and
get
1
any?
absence. Oh, is there any
He
still?
hasn't been voting, he's listening.
Okay, so he's just listening. So we do have a majority there, so that is accepted. Item 2, Councilman Flangus, discussion for possible action, first reading of ordinance 742, Bill 2021-05, with approval to move to the second reading. Ordinance 742 amends Title 2, Chapter 3, Sections 1 and 2, entitled Tree Board for the City Code of the City of Ely, specifically changing the number of members of the Tree Board from 9 to 5.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by
Second.
Councilman Spears, second from Councilman Carson. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item B3, Councilman Spear, Councilman Allworth, discussion only, update on Porter Group efforts on behalf of the city. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're still meeting, DJ, myself, and Councilman Spear with the Porter Group. Usually on Mondays. This last week it was on a Tuesday. One of the guys, Cameron, had his mother in DC, so he missed out on it. She enjoyed her visit. But a quick summary was discussed. The city of Ely is called the non-entitlement unit of local government, and our share of our funding is not yet officially available through the treasurer. What will be released next week, according to the Department's Office of Recovery. The state of Nevada overall will receive $150 million in this funding. Congress estimates City of Ely's total to be around $3.6 million, which that was reported a couple months ago. It hasn't changed much. It might be a few bucks less, but it's still going to be close to $3.6 million.
They're pretty confident about it.
Yeah, and we'll get that fine-tuned. The City of Ely will receive half of the total share this year, and the other half exactly 1 year later. Then congressional rule dictates that each office, the House of Representatives, can only select 10 requests for the consideration of the House Appropriations. Unfortunately, we're number 11 on the list. So that's Horsford's office was unable to include Ely's request in initial round submissions. However, as the Congressman's office indicated, even though the city's earmark requests are not among the 10 submissions, should the committee reject one of these 10 requests, the city's request may be submitted as substitutes. And keep in mind, the city still has the opportunity to submit an earmark request to the office of both Nevada senators. The Porter Group is in contact with Senator Cortez Pastos and Senator Rosen regarding the Senate's earmark process. So we still have a real strong voice there. And of those 10 requests, we got a copy of the 10 of them. We were told we were limited to $2 million. Each of those projects we had were $8 million each. We toned it down to $2 million. Several of them were $300,000. A hospital in Tonopah, $3.7 million, I think. 3.2. But one disturbing thing, which we voiced quite a healthy concern, Opportunity Village in Las Vegas, $13 million. $15.7 million. We said, what were the rules? So they're going to check on that, because we were told only $2 million. So again, we were very vocal. BJ was strong on that, Ed and I both were, and the Porter Group listened to it. Again, rural communities are getting hard pressed to get anything. Tonopah done well. Again, they have there and they got a kiss and go parking lane at their school, or wherever it was at. So we voiced our concerns. They told us to keep calm. And then, again, there's money that's coming out of that 3.6 million. We had a teleconference, I guess, yesterday. Ed, myself, and Jennifer sat in on it. The rules on how we're going to be able to spend it. It's pretty encouraging how we're going to be able to spend this. And once we get the written rule, after we know what it is, we'll probably have to have a committee get together and discuss it more. There's a lot of opportunities how to use that money within the city of Ely. It's really
Pretty wide open.
yeah, correct, thank you. It's really wide open, so it looks good on that part of it. That's anything. Any other questions that anybody might have, and run through Ed or myself, and we'll get hold of the general and Cameron and go through it. But it sort of took the wind out of ourselves. We were pretty optimistic, BJ and his crew done a lot of work on this, and Porter Group recognized it. And to be honest with you, you look at what the 10 that were awarded, I was disappointed in them. I'm not taking this from any of these communities. They needed to, 300,000 here, but that $15 million one, that was not right in my opinion. So that's it. Any questions?
Anything to add?
No, you said it all.
Thank you. We'll move on to floor councilman Allward, discussion only. Consideration of options to improve the appearance of commercial zones at all metal storage.
Okay, this is discussion only, an idea, brainstorming. I don't think you go around and tell somebody, hey, you got to put those slats in your fence, you got to plant all the trees or whatever. But, we're trying to do this whole downtown, uptown, the whole city, Main Street beautification. And they're zoned, these auto yards, they're zoned the way they are. And that's what they're doing. You talk to some of them, there's one of them, he pushed some of his vehicles back off behind Main Street. But it's like the old saying goes, you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. So, and some of these, semis are sitting, 16 feet in the air, you can't put a fence that high. So this is just brainstorming, what can we do? You come into town, the one behind Pauline Express, it's off the main beat, but boom, you go right down, the one property right by State Highway, it's there, it's cleaned up. The price of metal, they're processing a lot of their total not wrecked cars. There's money doing that now. And you come down over the hill past the cemetery, that was a auto body repair shop. Now it's a custom build shop, but you go behind it. There's parts in there, cars in different parts of disarray, but it's allowed by their zoning. So I'm just asking, that's why it's out there. So anybody got ideas, throw them out there. It's just what this is.
I think one of the main concerns for me on that is making sure those kind of areas are secure, that they're not easily accessible by animals or kids. And when the zone allows that, we do have areas where they are just piled up back there, and it's kind of an attractive nuisance. Maybe folding something into visually not accessible as well, I don't know. But
Yeah, I don't really think there's anything to do other than slats in the fence, right? Did you have anything specific in mind when you were thinking about the item?
No, it's not my money. It's their,
Sure.
It's their properties, and if they don't want to do it, they want to do it.
well,
You
what I
encourage
always
it.
like is that there's gravel pits and there's gravel pits. There's tow yards and then there's tow yards. There's people that are very fastidious and then there's people that just aren't. But I'm not exactly sure how to codify that.
Yeah, especially when, like Jim said, they're zone proper, that they're in the proper place where they should and could be.
Would we be within, would it be like an ordinance change or a zoning change that these kind of things do have to be secured by fencing or something like that?
There'd be an ordinance, there's an ordinance in place. And so that's, and same as item, if there were recommendations or different ideas, I can research those, see the legalities associated with it, the kind of changes that would be needed to do those. Just wanted to see if there were any ideas to look into or start looking at as a collective mind.
That would be my first suggestion, just off the top of my head, is that they require to have some fencing. I know some already do, but others don't. That's got to be a liability thing on their side too, if they've got a yard like that without any fencing around it.
Well, I think on the tow yard part of it, they have to have a secure fence for if they bring in a vehicle for a wreck. They've gotta be secured for the highway patrol or whatever. But you know, the one across from the cemetery, there's no fence around there, they're just, you know, there's some still being repaired, but you go back behind there, that's their business, custom building stuff, you take the roof off, take the hind center off or something, but, you know, I'm sure they'll work with us, those people are good people, they're all good people, but they try to tell them to put, I don't even know what the cost of those little slats are to put into a fence, I think they're expensive.
Well, the expense on those isn't necessarily the installation, but the assessor's office then gets you, because there's a total tax difference between a chain link fence and a chain link fence with slats.
Oh,
And if you've got a big yard like that, it could mean a big tax bill,
wow.
as I understand it. But
They're tough.
any other discussion on this side?
I totally agree with you, Mike, showing what the answer is.
Yeah, for sure.
Think about it. We will think about it.
Okay, we move on to item 5, council and feature discussion for possible action approval to conduct a pickup of large trash items, May 24th through June 28th, 2021, throughout the community utilizing the Public Works Department.
So Jennifer has sent me these, the drafts of these flyers. I didn't catch it the first time I looked, but I don't see a time for the terrace. Am I missing that? A day for the terrace?